good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are listening to this podcast episode. Good day, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are listening to this podcast episode. This is episode 3 of Lawyers with Stories. My name is Lisa Thomas, otherwise known as Norma on LinkedIn. And this podcast aims to encourage aspiring whatever legal practitioners. So barristers, advocates, solicitors, attorneys, whatever the reference is in your country, to inspire you with stories from real life practitioners. Most of the time, probably didn't have a smooth had journeys, just like all of us have, and we tend to have that. Most of the time, probably didn't have a smooth someone is successful in the right to the top, because we tend to have that assumption, right? Made, or they had because someone is successful in the present, that it was they had it made, or they had everything fall into place for them, right? You might have so this is to demystify, to break down into it, and assumptions that we might have generally about the profession, and what it takes to get into it, and what it takes to stay in it, right? So today's guest is Bongani Kane. He's the owner of his own entertainment law firm. They do other areas of law, but what caught my attention was the specialization in entertainment law, which is something that is very niche, and maybe something, an area that some of you want to get into, especially if you want to, if you are a musician or some kind of artist and you want to marry your passion, your two passions for law and for in the entertainment industry, because we know that's also a very brutal industry to get into, and things like the rights and royalties and all of that have to be protected, and you have to have the right contracts negotiated and all of those things. And so I approached Bongani for an interview because he had established himself in this niche area, together with the journey of and of course, hopefully his story, which is together with the journey of talking about establishing his own firm, which is not for the faint of heart, I might add. Maybe reach out to him. Hopefully his story will inspire you, and of course lead you to check him out, and maybe reach out to him if you want to talk about it further, right? Because something we encourage on this podcast is to engage with our guests. To the extent that they want to engage with you, we'll give the contact details, LinkedIn information out at the end of the episode, right? So very happy to have you on. Bongani, welcome to the podcast. I'm very happy to have you on, and of course, Bongani is from South Africa, so proudly Mzansi, entertainment lawyer, IP lawyer. I'm very
thank you, Lisa, and
proud and pleased to have you on the podcast, and thank you for coming. Yeah, so Bongani, you want to
thank you, Lisa, and thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Give us so Bongani, you want to give us, before we launch into the questions, you want to give us studies, an elevator pitch of where you grew up, and your studies, and of course what led to you being in the position you are in today.
All right, cool. So I'm a Free State boy. I'm from a small town called Bethlehem.
Israel.
And not the one in where's it? Is it Israel?
No, not Israel.
So
you're not Jesus.
I always describe myself as not that lover. So I always describe myself as a music lover first and foremost. That has informed everything that has led up to where I am now. I've always, kids grow up and they grow up idolizing Dr. Khumalo. This might be, I don't know how old some of the listeners are, but Dr. Khumalo, one of the greatest soccer stars ever. They have that guy on the poster, right? or the
Yeah.
latest action hero and whatnot.
Okay.
I grew up having Michael Jackson on my wall.
Okay.
I grew up with my dad blasting Prince's music the whole time. The Commodores, all of those guys, and obviously upbringing is everything. And I've literally grown up to be my dad, to listen to that very same stuff, and obviously other new stuff as well. So in my journey of studying law and becoming an admitted attorney, my main goal was always to marry my passion for law and the time I've invested in law with my passion for music and entertainment at large.
And of course, you went through the traditional route. Okay. What we have, and of course, doing your articles. You went through the traditional route of doing your what we have here in South Africa of doing your articles and clerkship, which is an internship, and doing your board exams.
Right, sure. So
just tell us, and of course, tell us what that journey was like for you.
All right, sure. So I was fortunate enough and this is why I don't mean to sound too philosophical, but I think the universe conspired to give me exactly, what I wanted, where I need to be. I ended up at a firm that specializes in intellectual property, Spur and Fisher. I ended up serving my articles there. Look, we didn't do anything related to entertainment. It was primarily trademark matters most of the time. If we did copyright, it was in other areas of copyright, like literature and whatnot. It was never music. But it was a good start, at least to understand the basics. Of this type of thing. And then after Spur and Fisher, I then worked for a company called LexCorp. They do legal insurance. It's the same model as your clientele and your whatnot, right?
Okay.
So the benefit about that is that they moved me from where I was, which was a niche, and you'd basically do everything there. Any area of law that the client wants to know about was, you had to research, which was exciting for me, prepare and familiarize yourself with that area so that you bring in sound advice, which was exciting for me because as much as I always wanted something that would bring me closer to my ultimate goal of being an entertainment lawyer, it was good doing other things. I felt more experienced now that I'm doing things that are unrelated to the thing that I was doing every day for about 3 years at Spur and Fisher, right? And then after that, I ended up at clientele legal, but their commercial department. So the model that they had there is that legal entities would take out policies, and they would, as a cover, they would have access to us, and we draft. Since it's legal entities and it's commercial, we'll draft contracts for them, risk management and all of that. And I did that for quite some time. I think I was there for about a further 3 years as well. Right?
Yeah.
And then while doing that, to pivot now it started becoming more urgent for me to pivot now to what I've always wanted to do. I've now done disciplinary hearings and all of that for these entities, drafting contracts and whatnot, but what I really wanted to do now, where I wanted to steer my legal career, it was now, it was keeping me awake at night. And I was fortunate enough to get a job as a legal advisor at SAMRO.
Yes.
And for those who don't know, SAMRO is a collecting society they collect royalties, composer royalties on
Yeah.
behalf of composers. So each time a composition is played on radio,
Yeah.
a royalty is owed to a composer, right?
Mm.
So that was like, I remember telling,
And they looked at me weird, like, don't you have
one of the people there, one of the senior people there, that this is my dream job. And they looked at me weird, like, don't you have higher dreams? How is this your
Yeah.
dream job? Don't you have better things for yourself?
I want to go
I'm like,
further than
you don't
this.
get it.
This is what
Like,
I've always wanted.
of course, I have, I want to go further than this, but this is what I've always wanted. And working here is a privilege, So that now allowed me to take my intellectual
Yeah.
property experience,
got to
apply it
learn
in the
from
music
some of the
business,
best,
which is an entirely different ball game,
And
by the way.
when you start,
Yeah.
And I got to learn from some of the best, in the business. And when you start there,
because
it's
it's
your
the
collecting
unsexy
society,
side.
that's the very grassroots
Yeah.
level of
'cause it has to do
entertainment.
with,
Because it's the unsexy side.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
because it has to do with collecting royalties. So it's the boring side, but it's the grassroots where you get to learn everything. Because I still see some of my peers who are in the industry, they struggle with some of the stuff because they didn't start at the grassroots level. You see them mixing up some of the collecting societies
And I
Yeah.
did that
so
for
forth.
about
So I had a proper handle on that from the beginning, and I
Yeah.
did that for about
almost 2 years,
Yeah.
I think
an
2.5 years,
to
or almost 2 years,
Let me
I
tell
think.
you this, while I was there,
Yeah.
And then I got an opportunity to work. Oh, okay. Let me tell you this. While I was there, my main thing was now to transition. I told you it's the unsexy side. So
Yeah.
now I want to go to the sexy side, which is the record label side. Yeah, so I was looking at any prominent record label.
Those are the multinationals, but
to
there
work
are
for,
few,
be it Sony, be it
prominent,
Universal.
independent record labels
Those are the
that are
multinationals,
Yeah.
but there were a few big, prominent independent record labels. But obviously, I
Yeah.
wanted the multinationals, but there weren't any opportunities at the time. And then I got a chance.
So,
I heard Ambitious
Imagine I'm only a
Entertainment
legal advisor
was
where I
looking
am,
for a
and
legal
separate
manager.
for a legal manager,
So
and it's in the
you can imagine I'm only a legal advisor where I am, and that position is for a legal
and
manager, and it's in the
your
what's
audience
the name?
will know
Record
if
label
it's
space.
that at some
And your audience will know, if they're students, that at some point Ambitious used to be the foremost
some of the
independent record label in the country. They had an amazing run. Yeah, some of the main biggest artists for a period of straight 7 years were coming from that label. So it was a huge opportunity. So I applied and I got the job.
Stressful for me at the time, but I appreciate
And
it now after
the nice thing,
with working
which
for a
was
small
stressful for me at the
is
time, but I
that
appreciated
they don't
now after
have
the
the
fact.
manpower
Nice thing
that
with
the
working for a
multinational
small
label has.
label is
Yeah.
that
So
they
ended
don't
up
have the
doing-
manpower
even
that a
though I was
multinational
there,
label has.
So-
right?
Yeah.
So
Let me give
I
you
ended up
background.
doing,
Record labels
even though I
and
was the legal
publishing
manager.
are
So
Yeah.
maybe let me give some background. Usually, record labels have a publishing wing.
Sometimes they're not even in the same.
You have a
Yeah.
you have a recording wing and a publishing wing, and they're usually kept separate. Sometimes they're not even in the same building, depending on where you are.
Publishing in-house. And guess
In this
whose job
instance, this
Yeah,
small
mine.
this small label was doing the publishing in-house, and guess whose job was to do
experience
this?
in the
Yeah,
recording
it was
side
mine.
and on the publishing side.
Now I'm getting experience in the recording side and on the publishing side as well. So it was like a golden opportunity to learn the music business and take my experience and
After some time
expand it.
being
And
there, here's the irony of all of this.
and then
I started missing
after some time being there, here's the irony of all of this.
You know,
I started missing other non-specialized
and I
work.
realized the only
You know,
way I've
funny enough, I
painted myself
missing.
I won't put it like that. When you say painted
And I realized the only way I had painted myself. No, I won't put it like that. When you say painted yourself on the wall, sounds negative. I manifested everything that happened, and it happened the way I wanted. But I started wanting to do other things as well while maintaining my niche, right?
Okay.
And I figured the only way I could do that was through a law firm, right? And that's when the decision to start my law firm, came about. And I didn't waste any time. Around March last year, I started the law firm, and another reason, it's twofold. The other reason is that now I wanted to. I had worked for all these corporations, and I hadn't gotten the opportunity to represent artists directly. Of course, I have label clients, and I need label clients. I love my label clients. I needed to work with artists directly. That was another thing. The music lover in me needed to give back to the artists who had given me so much, right? So that's when the firm started, and I've been at it ever since.
I think for me, there's a lot to unpack. What I tell. I think for me, what stands out is what I tell attorneys or even law students, people is that my usual audience, ask me, okay, when up and coming attorneys or even law students, okay, when is that they will ask me, okay, when exploring, I want to specialize, okay, when how should I go about exploring specialization or investigating it? And one thing I would always tell them is you need to get experience in the general areas first. You start before you actually you restrict specialize, because once you specialize as well, you start to you restrict your opportunities. Already it's so restricted, as we know in our South African the legal environment with getting articles of clerkship it's already very the number of positions are very restricted. So if you're going to specialize early, you're actually going to put yourself at disadvantage. And what I like about your entire journey is you knew what you wanted to do the diversification or the diversity. You knew what you wanted to do at the beginning, but you also embraced the diversity of the other areas of practice. Led you to open, and eventually that missing of those other areas, I was under the impression that led you to opening the firm. And I must say, I was law based. I was under the impression that your firm was entirely entertainment law based, but it's nice to see, and it also does not shut people out that need legal services and say, Umdekane Incorporated is only entertainment. No, they also do family law, right? And I think that's always a sign of a good practitioner to say, hey, I want to be able, yes, I have my passions, because we know but I want to be able to still help the man on the street with everyday problems. Because we know that everybody needs the protection of the law, right? Music artists, actors, but it's the average Joe on the street that needs that protection of the law. And so you sort of maintain that. As a lawyer, you need to serve. What can I say? That ethos where as a lawyer, you need to serve everybody. Ultimately, so I think that's a really positive lesson in that even though you knew what you wanted to do, right? Where the journey takes you, have to be open to change. You got to be open to, as you said, pivot where the journey takes you, but at the same time knowing when to, as you said, pivot and come back and say, okay, I need to reroute. I've gotten general experience. How can I get back on track, and how can I reroute? And you're saying, and even when you reroute, you're not discarding the previous experience that you had. And you're saying, right now I want to bring all that to bear on starting my own firm. And I think my personal endeavor now, which means the way I'm going to bring everything together is by starting my own firm. And I think that's a really useful lesson for those that want to specialize, that are thinking of specializing. Generally helping as much as you might. That you never lose sight of, but as a lawyer, you are generally helping people as much as you might have a niche area. But as a lawyer, you are in a service profession, and so also you need to, for example, do a maintenance case, or you must be able, and also protect a music artist at high levels, things like that. Like, you must be able to work at different levels. So I thought that was very interesting. Maybe you can just share. And of course, just I guess for the law students out there and those that might have just graduated, maybe you can just share what your journey was like as a student. I know you studied at UNISTA, which a lot of them do, and I know it kind of in person. At least my opinion is that it puts you at a disadvantage compared to going to in-person lectures. They say it has a bit of. And the one I hear that students that don't know, they say, "Oh, I'm so used to," and the one part or one of the disadvantages is that they don't know how to interact with other students because they're working by themselves. So maybe just share how you navigated that. Being a UNISA student, not that it's easy, but it's definitely
Sorry, I keep jumping in. So I wanted to say that I did actually go to in-person classes. So I don't know if UNISA still does this, but back in my time, they used to have collaborations with private universities like your CTI, Varsity College, MGI, right? And UNISA students would be allowed to register at that campus and receive lectures. I was having classes for all of my up until my fourth year, I was having classes for all of my modules. Graduate Institute is a private institution. Yeah, and I had mine at Midrand Graduate Institute. It's a private institution. I don't know what they call it these days. I believe the name has changed, but they had that type of arrangement.
Just share like how you navigated as a student. Okay. But maybe just share like how you navigated as a student, because obviously everything. I mean, at that point, I don't think a lot of us have our ducks in a row. I guess what I certainly everything that I'm able to teach now and give perspective is I guess what I wish and to give me being the person that I wish I had. Just to bust things open a little bit and to give me a bit of perspective. So maybe just share, maybe if you have any ways that you navigate in student life. Obviously, you knew your passion early on, which is something that's rare. So maybe just share about life as a student and how you navigated and studied, how you maybe failing exams and studying and. If you worked and studied, how you managed that situation?
So my whole student life, my dad. I had an interesting family dynamic. My dad at the time was very, coming from a small town in the Free State, you hear stories. You start to hear stories about how Joburg is dangerous, and we would see in some instances kids that go to Joburg and come back, not the same, being on drugs and whatnot. So the horror stories, him being an overprotective parent, had consumed him, and he was projecting a lot of that fear onto me. So my whole thing was to those first couple of years was me trying to prove a point to him. I wanted to show him that I can go there totally unsupervised and do what I what I needed to do. So that was always my motivation. I didn't have too much of and financially as well. We came from a very. But I had everything I needed. How do I put this? I didn't have everything I wanted, but I had everything I needed. So I didn't have the resources to spend all of my time and little money on booze and partying and all of that. I wanted to, and I'm never the lie. I wanted to. I wanted to, but I didn't have the money. So Yeah, I was pretty chill.
For the most
Varsity was
part,
very chilled for me.
it was hard work.
I was able
Long hours, but I knew
for
what
the
I
most
wanted,
part,
and as I said, I didn't
it was
have
hard work
everything I
to learn,
wanted, and that was
long
another thing that
hours, but I
I
knew
didn't
what I
want to have
wanted, and
everything I
as
wanted.
I said, I didn't have
Yeah.
everything I wanted, and that was another thing that fueled me. I did want to have everything I
Every time I
wanted,
felt
you know.
lazy, those were
Yeah.
the things
I
that I
didn't
would
want
tell
to rely
myself
on my
that
parents anymore. And every time I felt lazy, those were the things that I would tell myself.
and
that,
and
hey,
funny
man,
enough, I keep saying I knew
you
what
need
my
to push. You're
passion
almost
was,
there.
but I didn't know that
and
IP, and this is just
and funny
ignorance.
enough, I keep saying I knew what my
I
passion
didn't know
was,
that
but
IP
I
was
didn't
the
know that
gateway
IP, and this is just
to
ignorance
what
from my
passion
part.
is.
Yeah.
I didn't know that IP
Yeah.
was the
The
gateway
reason for
to
that, it's not that I didn't
what
know,
my
but
passion
I wasn't focused
is,
enough to see
right?
it. I was
Yeah.
And
looking at
it's
things
the
like
reason
I
for that.
enjoyed
It's not
criminal
that I
law,
didn't
got a
know, but I
distinction
wasn't
for
focused
it.
enough to see
Uh-huh.
it. I was looking
So
at things
I was
like
looking at
I
all the
enjoyed
other,
criminal law, and I even got a distinction for it.
fascinating
Funny enough.
modules that I
So
enjoyed.
I was looking at all the
Here's
other
another irony. I didn't do so
fascinating
well in IP. I
modules
just
that I enjoyed, and here's another irony: I didn't do so well
Because I
in
found it
IP.
boring.
I just made it in that
I
module.
just I think I got 51% shocking.
Because I found it boring,
I can do this stuff in my
I
sleep.
just I think I got 51%. Shocking if you consider I
Yeah,
can do this
that's-
stuff in
that-
my
that was
sleep right now.
Pretty much me. I was very passionate about
So
the other modules and things.
yeah,
I was
that's
learning.
that
Your
was
labors, I remember
pretty
I
much
used
me. I
to
was very
study
passionate
as
about
well.
the other
Yeah,
modules and
IP
things
was the
I was
last
learning.
thing.
Your
I just
labors,
knew
I
where I
remember I
wanted
got a
to be,
distinction
but
for
I couldn't
labor
see
as
what was in
well.
front of me and the modules that
Yeah,
I
IP was the last thing. I just knew where I wanted to be, but I couldn't see what was in front of me and the module that I really needed to lead into.
Yeah, I think
I
for me, at least
totally
when I was at
discarded
university,
that
was
opportunity.
there was this misconception that if you did well I think for me, at least when I was at university, it was there was this misconception that if you did well in a certain subject or a module, that was going to be your
And even from my end as well, like
the thing that you were going to
So,
take up in your career space.
I mean, I
And even from my end as well, like I did
I
pupillage,
never
so
really practiced.
I didn't. I mean,
like
my marks weren't bad, but
defense.
I never really practiced civil
thing that I
law.
teach people
Like
about is civil.
I mainly did criminal defense, but now my actual niche or the thing that I teach people about is civil procedure, high court civil
Most
procedure,
unlikely
which is and even if I go back to my university days, it's like
be somebody
most unlikely to even
didn't the
become an advocate, let alone be somebody in my position now. It was like the marks didn't, the performance at university
the
didn't
whole
actually
university journey itself
point very positively to what I'm doing now. So, I mean, the whole university journey itself is, you can prematurely, I guess, say, oh, I'm good at this, therefore I must get into that area of law. You can be completely suck at, like you say, IP, but you end up entering that space and saying, hey, I actually like this one. Actually, in a practice space, at least, I'm quite good at this. So I think that's one lesson from university, is that don't also decide too early, like I'm good at something, therefore that's where I'm going to settle. And I even tell students also that you got to get into practice first before you say you don't like it.
the practice phase.
You might be an introvert who might just naturally shy away from the practice phase and say, no, I don't want to, I don't like to be around people, etc., or I'm scared or I'm shy. But I often say, try it first and then reject it.
Even if you're not
Because you never know.
But you might
You get in there,
in that practice,
even if your work is just a
albeit
desk
in a
job,
quiet,
even if you don't go to court, but you might actually
So,
thrive in that
I think
practice
our
environment,
journeys and
albeit
a lot
in
of
a
the
quieter,
listeners
so-called
like,
quieter role.
oh, the thing
So I think our journeys and a lot of the listeners as well is like,
I thought I was good
oh,
at
the thing I'm doing now,
actually
I
suck at.
did so badly at a
I'm
university.
referring work to
or,
my colleagues.
the thing I thought I was good at at university, I actually suck at now. It's like I'm referring work to my colleagues because turns out I'm not so good in practice as I was at university. So I think that's a common
You mentioned a lot
common
of the
experience.
roles that you took.
Something else I wanted to touch on was You said you mentioned that a lot of the roles that you took to build to where you are now, they were not very glamorous.
What you're doing now,
right?
but
they were, as you said, the non-sexy side of
foundation. I know you said
what you're doing now,
you did,
but you did it. You laid the foundation. I know you said at Samro you did.
You're gonna come to the stage now where you
at the boarding level. You started right at the bottom,
and then
not knowing that you're gonna come to the stage now where you have to need to know all of that. And then when you worked
busy with the recording
as a legal manager as well for another organization, you were doing busy with the recording and the publishing side of things, which gave you all of that exposure. And I think that's something that I also touch on with students, is that
you have to
besides diversifying the different practice areas, in a practice situation, you have to know how to do most of the things yourself.
I think if you
right, you must be. I think humility is the key. I think if you not to
very shy person,
maybe blow your trumpet or make you sound grander than you are, if you're a very shy person, but it demonstrates that you have the humility, right, to say, hey, I'm the legal manager. Why should I be doing X? It's somebody else's job. You said no.
I might as well take.
I acknowledge that I'm at the bottom.
Building my experience.
So
my
I might as well take what's coming my way, because end of the day, it's building my experience, my expertise. And if I'm not able to get someone else to do this particular task,
maybe just
I'm able to do it by myself. It'll be hectic, but I can do it by myself.
Without being abused.
Maybe they touch on that
in a corporate space, but being willing,
to
be humble
without being abused, obviously, in a corporate space, but being willing
to do everything.
To be humble enough to say,
at some
hey,
point I might not even be able to.
I need to learn everything. I need to be able to do everything.
So maybe just touch on the whole.
At some point, I might not even be able to afford staff.
When you are starting out,
So maybe just touch on the whole aspect of
where you are
humility when you are starting out.
Not everybody
can shoot
straight to the
and especially building your way up to where you are now.
Some of your colleagues now,
you can't. Not everybody can shoot straight to the top. Like you're saying, some of your colleagues, some of your colleagues now, they probably just bypassed a few steps. Just to the top faster, but they don't know the basics.
When you say this,
capacity to
when you say this, you remind
just
me of a certain situation.
be humble and learn from the bottom
I
up.
won't say which. When you say this, you reminded me of a certain situation. I won't say which employer it was, because then it would be too obvious. When I was there, there were certain instances where sometimes a department would send work to legal, and sometimes you'll find that whatever they're sending, it's actually can be sent back to them to say, no, this is not within our line of what we do. Your department can actually still do that itself. It's part of your key areas to do this. So you guys are passing the ball here, and you shouldn't be doing that, right? I was so hungry to learn, and I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be stuck in a company that deals with music, but I'm still doing, company secretarial stuff where I don't really touch. The actual music related stuff, right? So I would welcome those type of things, and not that I was putting myself out there to be abused, but I was so hungry to learn that type of stuff. I would actually open myself to say, no, don't worry, I'll deal with that. I'll do it. And that has gone a long way to getting me to a place where I'm as confident as I am, especially in my line of in the entertainment
and of course, it's
IP
easy
stuff.
Yeah.
And here we want to break
Yeah.
the thumb.
Yeah.
We want to bust assumptions.
I mean that, and of course it's easy to.
come now to
And here we want to break assumptions, we want to bust assumptions. So it's easy for listeners to think, oh, so he's come now to this point and
getting into
he's worked everything out.
like,
I mean,
what's your
just from without obviously getting into
still have
spilling any tea, but
mindset
like, what's your, like, in terms of where you are now? Do you still have the same mindset? Like, have you improved? Are you still able to
people will assume,
sort of
okay, you've been
be humble? And it's all those basic things that
are you
people will assume, okay, you've employed a certain strategy to get to the top.
mistakes.
So now you just, are you still that person that's open to learning and humble and making mistakes?
Yeah.
And
So
because all, I mean,
maybe just
myself
share a bit
included, we've not
on
arrived.
some of the challenges
Yeah.
So like,
as a law firm owner,
maybe just share a bit on some of the challenges you faced as a law firm owner, and of course, if any of the attitudes that you had coming up to this point, have they carried over, and has it helped you in any way?
All right. So one of the my main challenges, I'm trying to be a better administrator. I spent so much time in corporate. There were people that would take care of certain things. I realized that now the buck stops with me for everything, and I realized that I wasn't prepared for the admin of it, and I'm just always finding new ways, and to employ technology and whatnot to make sure. Just last week I was looking at a self-scheduling IT technology solution so that people can schedule their own meetings without me getting hands-on that. It's little things like that that I just need to become better at. Specialized for a long time. And another thing is that having been so specialized for a long time, even though I did do other things, I am learning, especially. I'm definitely open to. I didn't do them every day. To learning, especially in those other areas, because even though I didn't do them every day like I did the IP and experience stuff, even though I did do them, I'm building on the previous experience I had. So it's very open right now. As an attorney, you can't be an expert in every area of law. The ones that are, my labor side is quite busy.
And
Bongani, you were sharing about
what you're finding difficult as a law firm,
what you're learning, and what you're finding difficult as a law firm owner. And I think what's important is that, instead of just as much as you are building on your IP specialization, but you're open to getting better at the other practice areas, which I think is something that is a good takeaway for juniors, because
don't feel the need to
even with the idea of specialization,
so I think that's something that's
we sometimes don't feel the need to develop ourselves in the other areas. So I think that's something that's quite admirable, in that you are still wanting to build on your previous knowledge in the other areas of law. And I think when you start new things as well, like starting a law firm, starting at a different level of education,
without being abused,
we have to have that sponge mentality where we're like, without being abused, we have to say, okay, I'll take the work. Ultimately, it means that I'm going to build my reputation and build my skill in this area, because ultimately you want to be known as someone that people can come to generally for help, and at the same time you also have that confidence of people where they say, oh, he's also a very healthy entertainment lawyer. Okay, a very good IT lawyer. So I think that's actually a very healthy aspiration for aspiring lawyers, junior lawyers to have, is to say, okay, I wanna come to that point, even whether I own my own law firm or not.
and also
I want to be known as someone that can be approached for help generally with legal stuff, and also be trusted for my expertise in a specific field, you know. And in terms of the administration side of things, I mean, the struggle is real. They told us at university we had to do legal accounting because when we start practice, we won't be able to afford accountants or secretaries. That was the story. That's how they sold the cost to us. And I mean,
using technology and
there as well. I mean, just optimizing
when you
and
start off, you don't have
using technology and maybe even outsourcing. Because when you start off, you don't have the capital to.
You might not have that
Unless you've got some private investors or something.
So you
don't have that. You might not have that flexibility to hire for people. So you become the lawyer, the secretary, the phone person, the messenger. So nice to hear that you are having those very real
how to do this
struggles, but at the same time,
I spend
like with me,
more time
every week I'm looking how to do stuff better in different areas. How can I spend less time here, more time there? How can I make the most of my time and be productive as opposed to busy, things like that. So I think that's a very good. You don't just say, oh, who can I hire to solve my problem? You sit and you think about it and you say, okay, how can I, as a business owner, do it better so that my service delivery is ultimately better at the end of the day.
I think it was a very
Rani, thank you for your time.
energizing, at least from
and I think it was a very
there's a lot
very
to unpack.
energizing interview, at least from my end.
Part two.
And I'm sure there's a lot to unpack.
All of our journeys,
maybe we will do a part two.
Not restricted to the legal field.
But I think all of our journeys, all of our lives journeys, not only restricted to the legal field. If we've reached a certain point in our lives that people look after us,
So
I think it's very important
we unpack our journeys
to
and we
make
say,
our
"Okay, guys,
our lives a
don't
resource.
do that, but
So
do
that
that better than what I
we
did."
unpack our
And
journeys and we
I
say,
think
okay, guys,
so,
do this or don't do that, or do this better than what I
people
did.
like yourself,
And I think it's so it's so important, especially with people like yourself,
very
that
realistic.
actually have the humility
Even
to
though
come
you're at
on
a certain
and
point now, but
just share very realistically.
basically, in a very
Even though you're at a certain point now, but you still you had to come up
there are plenty of
basically in a very unglamorous way.
but
I'm sure that there are plenty of things you faced along the way. As
your
we
journey
pass,
as a law
but
firm owner, so
and you're still on that
2 years
evolution.
down the line,
Still,
maybe we can do another.
you still unfolding your journey as a law firm owner. So maybe
Bongani,
2 years down the line, maybe we can do another interview and we can hear, okay,
how
Bongani, from in year 1 of being a law firm owner to year 5,
my audience,
how have you
might have started
navigated, and maybe that will be relevant to my audience at that point who might have started law
and
firms
maybe you can tell
already.
people
So
where they can
I'd appreciate your
find
time
you,
and willingness to come on.
if you
And maybe you can tell people where they can find you.
Sure, no problem.
If you give out your socials to the extent that you are comfortable.
Sure, no problem. So my Facebook, when you spoke about the different hats that we have to wear, one of those hats I'm seeing quite busy is the content. I do a lot of articles about IP and in the entertainment space, right? So sure, for those to catch those, my Facebook is actually quite heavy with that type of content, and I'm trying to move it to my company's, the law firm's Facebook page, but it seems people are more, they want to be on the personal one. But the filtering is going and it's going slowly, but it's no problem. So if you can find me on Facebook, just type in Bongani and you'll be able to get to me, and I'll make sure well.
that I'll
By the way,
filter
which
you
also
through to
has
the
the
business
same
pages
content.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, and I
And
think
that's my LinkedIn as well, by the way, which also has the same content.
some
Yeah.
of your posts.
Yeah. In fact, I learned one or two things. I think I commented on some of your posts.
Yeah.
And I found it. I said because you had some info like infographic type of content.
If I can learn,
Yeah.
And I found it
that's what
very,
attracted me
like
to you in the first
I'm
place.
also in a very much a learning. If I can learn something, I think that's what attracted me to you in the first place was that
Yes.
And, you know, you
it was a very niche area, number one, and an area that I could relate to.
Yeah.
something,
And
Yeah.
you know, you explained. I think you're explaining like the difference between royalties and
so I
Yes.
thought that was quite
something.
informative, and I'm sure
The whole for
and I
music
think
artists.
it becomes an educational
So
resource
I thought that
for
was
the
quite
content
informative, and I'm sure
entertainment.
if and I think if it becomes an
all of those
educational
things,
resource
and
for
I
those
think
that want to
I've
dip
not seen
into
anybody else on
entertainment,
LinkedIn that,
IP,
at least locally, that
all of those things, then I think I've not seen anybody else on
so
LinkedIn that
you can
at least
hold quite
locally
a
that
niche in terms
that
of
touches on the same
content
area
that
of
you
law.
produce. And,
So you can hold quite a niche in terms of the content that you produce, and sort of become like a
reach out to Bongani and
bit of a monopoly in that space. So so guys, you can reach out to Bongani and he can
there's someone
you
that
can chat with him, maybe send him a DM on LinkedIn. I know he's very busy, but there's someone that I can recommend in the entertainment law space. It's him. And of course, if you want to hear more from Bongani, then you can also let us know via our Spotify page and leave us a review and some comments.
Thank you, Bongani.